Okay, again, these are important. You see this on so many shoes, the little spot black. Okay, so I'm gonna be doing some shoe studies today and specifically gearing that towards perspective. So these won't be very rendered, they're more about the drawing part. So let me go ahead and get started. So I have a reference picture you can see there. I'm gonna try to cycle through quite a few of them. I had some shoes I drew the other day as well. So yeah, I'm gonna be drawing, I'm gonna be answering some questions if anyone has questions or wants some tips on perspective. So you can see in the top corner, I can cycle through all these pictures I've been cutting out of different types of shoes, different types of positions, right? Different ways they hit the ground. So I feel like a good one, this is probably a good one to start with right here. So yeah, let me know if you're there. If you got a couple of viewers, type in the chat, feel free to say what's up. And then yeah, definitely taking questions today if anyone has any. Okay, so first thing I would usually do is start off with what I refer to as the slice. So I kind of do a slice up like this, slice down, then I use that to connect the heels. So we got a oh cool, that's you, Kayleen, right? Good to see you in here. It's kind of a funny time of day. I didn't know if anyone's gonna be here for lunchtime. So yeah, usually I do the two slices. I'll do one slice here, one slice here going up. I'll use that to make my little rough grid. And then I'll start to build on top of that. So these are pretty simple shoes. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just kind of rough it out. So what I wanna do is I wanna sketch these and then kind of talk through a little bit of like the perspective thoughts. You know, how to get these to have good perspective, how to show the shoe hitting the ground really well. So like most things, I usually have like a baseline, right? Like one shoe, you know, or foot that's correct, and then I kind of base the second one off of that. And in perspective, I can kind of connect even some of these ideas of landmarks on the shoes. So this one probably came out a little bit far. That's okay, we'll give it a quick adjustment. So this still encompasses my rough sketch. Like I'll keep this kind of rough, loose, and then I'll start tweaking it from here. I think like most days that I draw, especially on camera, I probably should warm up. Should do like a little bit of warm up to get myself like in a groove. But that's okay. I don't know if anyone else has that situation where you come into drawing kind of cold. So I mean like you come in like you haven't drawn really much. I haven't drawn too much today, just a little bit to start the day. But yeah, coming in cold, I feel like that first drawing or two is gonna be kind of rough. So again, I want to sketch these in, and then I'll start talking a little bit about perspective on them. And one reason I'm doing this stream, I'm gonna actually try to do this every Wednesday. I'm gonna try to make Wednesday kind of the educational stream. That's because I'm teaching people this week about shoe drawing, about perspective. So I thought it'd be a good time to do like a supplementary stream. Okay, so right off the bat I can tell there's a couple of things I want to correct, but this is a good place to be in because this is where I make those corrections, meaning I have content on the paper, on the canvas, right? So that's usually the first thing I think about when I'm doing the gesture of the sketch is, well, I want something to edit. I don't want to just pretend like, oh, I'm going to get every line perfect, and then more importantly, I can't make things look better or perfect until I actually sharpen up a little bit. And sharpening up means having all this stuff on the canvas. So right off the bat, I'm going to try to do this a little bit traditionally, meaning instead of like too much free transform in Photoshop, I rather redraw like I would in real life. So one thing I can tell you know, is I think I want to move this up a little bit and kind of change this perspective a little. So I want this to kind of have a little more of like that behavior. Get this a little bit wider. Good old lag is kicking in, Photoshop lag, which I lament. Can't wait to get a new setup someday and get some nice RAM on this computer. Get that Photoshop running a little bit smoother when I stream. So yeah, I think this is a little bit more what I want. Okay, so now I'm gonna clean this up, and depending on the time, like I've been on for, you know, like probably about 5 or 6 minutes, I'd like to do these in about like 10 minutes each. So here's where I ghost. So of course on Photoshop I could lower the opacity, but I'll do this kind of traditional style, like erasing it. And now I get a little tighter, a little more detailed. And kind of like the eyes of the human head, like anything that I want to build together to have them match to a certain extent, I want to kind of build them side by side. So meaning, you know, I'm going to want to do a little bit of drawing on here, on this one shoe, and then go over to the other one, kind of work on that one for a little bit. So we have the heel, and then a little bit of a pop out. Come over here. Start working on this one. Here's the sole. And I will take a second, I'll probably put some color on this to kind of make it a little more interesting. And what I'll do is I'll do probably one more pass. So I mean, like, this is my next pass, and then I'll clean it a little bit more and then throw some color. Okay, here's the next flag. So yeah, Wednesdays I'll probably be doing, you know, topic of the week that I'm currently teaching in classes, but in general I'll probably make it kind of an educational time. And this one's twofold. You know, the shoes are cool, like that's an important part, but this is the more important idea, is kind of working on the perspective of, again, the feet hitting the ground. Okay, so this isn't too bad for me, you know, like sketching wise. I wouldn't mind if it's a little bit cleaner. What I'm actually gonna do now is I'll kind of wipe out and erase some of the old sketch. This is all just on one layer. Definitely could make some multiple layers, but again, since these are quick studies, I'll usually just keep it as one layer. So Photoshop is a little bit gnarly with me, so that's why some of this stuff is a little bit scratchier than I normally would draw. Okay, so let me go ahead and tighten up and then add even some key shadows. This would be one of the first, like, really important shadows, because the shoe, based on not only the construction of it, but especially our action with it, like walking with it, is actually oftentimes pointing up. So it has like a little bit of an up scoop. So then 99% of the time you're gonna get this cast shadow. And so even on the one that's really foreshortened coming towards us, we'd see that as well. It's like deep little cast shadow. This, of course, what we would call oftentimes a spot black. Spot blacks are any like extreme black shadows, or especially areas where things touch. So even like here, like these little corners or pockets of the foot going into the shoe, we could put a little bit of spot black in there. So a little bit of canvas bend on there, we could indicate that. There again, that crinkle, right, of walking. Okay, and then to wrap it up, I'll put a little color on it. So let's make a new layer underneath, and I want to grab kind of like almost like a green black. I think it'd be a nice color. I don't have that gray on there, so hold on a second. So when I do anything that's black, it is pretty important to me to try and not do anything darker than the line art. So even if something through shading or lighting becomes pure black later on, it'd be nice to at least start with not having it be as black as the line art. Because that creates a lot of a like muddy read, right? I mean, like it's not going to look or read very well if the black of the color you're choosing, in this case the black shoes, is darker than the line art. Then everything starts to get really unclear. So this in theory reads black. That's what counts to me. Is it looks like black, it reads like black, so then it's a few steps above black as a color. That also of course ties into our pretty important like rule where we try not to make anything 100% black in general. Like nothing in life really has that look, so then we try to avoid that. And then the black looks a little different on the sole, and so I'm going to reflect that. I'm going to kind of change the color a little bit cooler in temperature, so that way when I do the black sole, it kind of has a slight shift, slight difference. I got the radio on lo-fi, but I might throw it on the metal in a minute. Get my energy going. So yeah, black shoe, black sole, black socks, right? A lot of blacks. That's why it's really important for us to shift the hue, meaning like the color of the black. So the shoe itself's like a black version of green. The sole is like a slightly more blue version of black, and then the sock is actually a blue kind of black. And I'll try to do some different degrees of sketching during this hour, so I'll color some, other ones I'll just leave as a sketch. Maybe I'll even shade or paint one a little bit. And then yeah, the pants are kind of like a nice, really like mossy green on the photo. I know the photo's kind of small probably on your side, right, on the reference side, but if it's really important, I'll put it up on the screen a little bit bigger. So yeah, here's that mossy kind of green. And then I'll go ahead and throw a little shadow in there. So I'll make a new layer, set it to multiply. I'll keep kind of this theme of green. There's like a lot of green going on, so I'll just grab kind of like a gray mid-tone green on multiply layer, and I'll use that as my shadow. And one layer of shadow, like one type of shadow, can do so much to the drawing. Like it could put a lot of depth into it. So I mean, you don't have to like shade a lot. You don't have to choose like a lot of different areas. Even just one kind of quick shot of shadow can add a lot of depth. Which, speaking of that, I'll even put one below the feet so they have some grounding. So we're gonna sketch. We're gonna kind of clean up, get the shoe on here, and then I'll draw a little bit of perspective on there, and I'll even kind of chat about that, right? Like I'll chat a little bit about what kind of perspective did we see in this piece. Okay, and the last thing, we'll throw a little bit of ground shadow. And I don't know, I'll be on for about an hour, so I don't know how many I'll get through, but it'd be nice to get through like 3 or 4. That's why I'll kind of speed them up a little bit. We're gonna try some smudge tool. That's probably gonna make Photoshop explode. That's not that bad. Okay, then the last thing is, let's check out the perspective on here. So I'm gonna make a new layer on top, grab my brush again, and double check its settings. Cool. Okay, yeah, so let's check out some of this perspective. So we have, I'll grab some red. Oh, so yeah, question, what boots are those? So I got those off Pinterest. Definitely, like, I think it was in the techwear. I'll type it on there. Like, a lot of the reference I got, I went to Pinterest and I typed in techwear. Because those are people that have kind of like European, especially like, I would say like European, Asian country. You'll find a lot of those photos coming from there. And people have like all these really cool kind of like black, baggy, sort of like industrial style clothing, and that's where you see stuff like that, like really big boots or like cool shoes. So yeah, that's where I painted those boots from. I don't know fashion very, you know, like super well necessarily. Oh, I'm gonna change this song because there's some kind of weird alarm going on here. Let's try the metal station out again. That was a pretty good one last time I did it. Yeah, so techwear would be again like the #1 place I would look for some of the boot kind of stuff for like people who are industrial, like industrial style fashion. Okay, so here is our, what I often refer to as like the tile, right? Kind of like the perspective tile. You're like a fashion god. What do you mean by that? Like you're a big fan, or like you know a lot? Because I don't know much. Like I'm not bad at like talking about fashion, but I don't know it super well. Again, like techwear, I like that stuff a lot. You know, like Alexander McQueen, I feel like I like a lot. So yeah, there's a little bit of our tile on there. Let me go ahead and cut this off. So yeah, this is again like how I would study, because I'm trying to work on the shoe itself, but more importantly the way it's hitting the ground. And probably like my #1 tip again would be this idea where the shoe is almost all the time turning up a little bit because of us walking and like crunching it, and so you get this automatic little spot black here, spot black. So spot black again, those are extreme shadows. All right, so now I'm gonna mash all this down into one layer. Put that there. And we'll call that one done. We'll go to the next one. And then since I, of course, have just a few people, a couple people in and out of here, if you have a picture of shoes that you're like, hey, draw this one, like totally throw it in the chat. I'd be happy to try it out. Let's see. So now I'm going to go to... I like the Converse a lot. These are kind of cool. Yeah, these aren't too bad. Well, let's see. I kind of like a... Saw foreshortening in that one. That's pretty crazy. Those are cool. I like shoes like that a lot. I used to have some shoes like that. I'm gonna try these because I like the sole on them is pretty cool. New layer. Noticing my video. I don't know if my video updated or not on my Photoshop. I'm drawing a little bit, I don't see it updating, so we'll see. Okay, so yeah, that's my next one. Let's see. And let me start working on that one. I'm gonna double check, make sure my video's up to date. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so again, you know, I could draw the perspective first. I could do the slice, is usually like what I'd like to do first, kind of like slice in the shoe. Put the slice going down. Give myself a rough idea of where the next one's going to connect. I do kind of like the photo where the feet are a little bit close together, so I'm actually going to play off that a little bit. So like that. So in this case, this would be the important part in trying to walk up, because here to here walks up, but of course this foot's turned a little bit, like it has more of a pivot. So I don't need the shoes to, in this case, like kind of walk exactly like that. This would be like the perspective I'm trying to capture, is that one right there. And so let's go ahead and connect that. So this is again what we call building from the ground up, right? We're kind of laying down the shoe as it hits the ground, and then we sort of construct on top of that. You know, there's no, for me currently, it's not like a super strict process of where I'd start, but I do kind of like showing this opening right here, like where the leg is going to go in. Oh wow, I think I see 7 people on here. That's probably the strongest showing I've had. Yeah, type in the chat if you're in here. If you're, I told a few people about this, not only from the classes, but also some of my other students, even from other schools. So yeah, feel free to let me know who's in here. So we're doing the second one. Oop, there we go. So again, gesture first, right? Rough drawing, doesn't have to be perfect. If anything, I don't want to stress about it being perfect. I just want to get some information on here. And the craziest thing about this is this sole of the shoe, right? It's almost like my first thought is it's like teeth. Oh, cool, man. Thanks. Yeah. So even getting, of course, some people not from my classes, that's good to know. Yeah, and if you just joined, something I was saying earlier is, you know, I think every Wednesday, got my, Kayleen's already, you're in here, and yet you're, I'm gonna see you later too. I always admire that. I'm like, you're probably already tired of hearing me from 2 hours tonight, although I could be a little bit different in this context, like largely the same person, but I feel a little more like truly myself, you know, not necessarily a Mr. David mode, right? But yeah, I was saying earlier that every Wednesday I think I'll try to get on and be especially educational, like during this kind of time. So, you know, I like to do a lot of the streams about like teaching or like, you know, studies I'm working on. Some days I'll just get on here and I want to do some of my character design work. I was working on a lot of painting before, but it was all NDA, so stuff I couldn't show. So, but now I have a little bit of an opening that can work on some stuff that's not NDA, so I'll put that up. But yeah, Wednesday would be a cool day to do like the lesson day or kind of like studies day. That's the thing I, of course, tell everyone all the time is like I do a lot of studies. Like I study and sketch a lot to learn and get better, and so, you know, why not do it on streaming and get some people to try it out, or at least get some discussion going as well. Definitely feeling the metal station more than the lo-fi one. I like lo-fi, but I put it on as it's like the really friendly, you know, music I put on for people. Deep down, I rather listen to like electronic or yeah, the metal here. Laces, don't really care about right now. I'm just putting some placeholders. It looks like there's 7 eyelets, so I'll keep track of that later. But you know, just kind of throwing it in there right now for a little bit of like perspective check. There's the lace tied up here. The tongue is tucked under the pants, looks like, so not a lot of tongue of the shoe. Okay, so then there'd be my next kind of, you know, drop in, my little lay in. So far, again, not too bad. Like, don't even really, I think I need less adjustment on the perspective of this one than I did on the other one, which is cool. I talked about that right in the beginning of what I was streaming. I was saying, oh yeah, like you gotta, you know, warm up a little bit. Sometimes you come out a little bit cold, you know, when you haven't been drawing. I haven't really drawn today yet. But yeah, so once again, let me treat this kind of traditionally. So normally on Photoshop, I would drop the opacity and go on top. But to kind of mimic what I do in real paper, you know, I'd also just do this. I kind of wipe down a little bit. And I'm leaving it more physical because people are like on here possibly watching, right? But normally I would take it really low, like you know, probably even I'll show you like this even is usually where I'd want it to be. I can't tell if that shows up on there. It does. I'm gonna leave it on that because this way I'm not super influenced. Like I can still change a lot of the drawing. I don't feel like I'm just tracing lines. So again, now I'm starting with basically the foot of the shoe, right? Like the shoe's for your foot, but in theory there's like the sole, there's like the opening, so this is kind of like that main foot shape. Although I do like to get this opening part in there pretty early on. Yeah, here comes a really tall sole. So now it has these teeth, right? Kind of like this teeth shape, but because I'm doing a study or a sketch, I'm not super concerned with that quantity right now. I just want to make the illusion of it. So what's better for me personally is actually to do this first, to kind of sketch, you know, the wrap, a little bit smaller there, a little like wrap of the heel going into the arch, going into the toe. Man, that last song was crushing it on the metal radio. That was a good one. And then going into this. So yeah, I want to get the shape first. Then I'll kind of add a texture. So again, I'm not going to count, well, I'll kind of call those teeth. I'll just come in here and roughly look at the spacing and then kind of put in the little kind of notches like that. And then speaking of that, for the texture, one thing I wouldn't want to do is make teeth like really defined lines across that sole. So let me just, there again, hint at the divisions. This is, of course, the idea of like broken line. The line's not complete, but you visually are still going to kind of feel that completion. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the little bit of the tongue. I'll get to the laces in a minute, but before I do all that, let me start building the other side. Even this was a little bit like far for me before I'd come over to the other side. So always not only go back and forth, but definitely like build stuff together. So, I mean, actually on Photoshop, I'm sort of roughly doing this. Like, I'm not drawing the line physically like I just did, but I was sort of like on my tablet, gauging like, okay, where's that next little boom, like that little pop or that little spot right there. Because there again, I'm using my perspective to kind of help me in the behavior of these. So that's about a good spot where I want that next one to start. Yeah, and these are getting a little bit rougher than what I normally would have or what I like. Not only because of my sketching time, but because of a little bit of lag, right? Photoshop's lagging a little bit since I'm streaming. So normally I wouldn't have the lines as crusty, but to me, especially for studies and learning, finish, unless that's what you're doing, you're trying to like really work on like polish, finish to me wouldn't be as important as like the info. Like, you know, are you learning or getting some info out of it? That's what counts more than like perfect shapes and lines. Especially time, right? Like those of you, especially if I have some of my students knowing your age, you know, I wouldn't try to spend more than like 10 minutes on each shoe, each study. This one's probably going a little bit long, but there again, the chatting, the narration kind of slows it down for me. Yeah, I was even thinking about that earlier this week because I wanted to do some more streaming this week. That I'll even probably have like some silent streams, like where I'm on but I'm not talking. I'll still have the music, but it'll just be like a quiet stream, just the music, just me sketching. Especially if it's later at night, so that way I'm not waking anyone up. Plus, don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of chatting and narrating, but sometimes I actually like to be quiet, which is probably for anyone who takes my classes might be shocking. You might be like, wow, you talk like the whole class. You must love talking. And the truth would be not totally. I like to give a lot of information, right? Like I like to really help my students out. I like to talk as much as possible and fit as much into that time, but deep down I'm a pretty quiet person overall. I'm like, I'm kind of like loud or myself, like with people I'm really comfortable with, but largely I would say when I'm drawing. Maybe that's why I should tell you, is like, I chat a lot and stuff, like I enjoy chatting, but when I'm drawing I'm like kind of silent, because usually I'm drawing and listening to music, so I'm not really like talking with anyone or kind of like using any other part of my brain besides just the working part. Okay, again, these are important. You see this on so many shoes, the little spot black. And this shows two things. One, grounding, right, which is always chill. That's always important to show this shoe is hitting the ground. And then two, it's literally what's happening because you walk in a lot of these tennis shoes or softer shoes, and so the toe starts to point up more. Because you literally are, of course, walking and like crunching the shoe, and it changes the character of the shoe itself. So you'll sometimes see like this, like you'll see like maybe a little spot black back here, like on the heel, which that can be nice. In fact, let me take the perspective sketch off so you can see how, just those little shadows can start to give us some grounding. Here's this one. I literally, like, you can see on the camera if you're watching me, I'm literally like, I lean into the computer because I'm like, ooh, I'm just trying to like barely put it in there. Not much. You don't want it to stick out a lot because that's like an extreme cast shadow. That's not what's happening. It's just the little toe part of the shoe. Yeah, and then speaking of spots or little blacks on shadows, these are nice, like the little teeth. You could put some little spot black in there to kind of show that teeth, or like maybe another word you could use, like ribbing, right? Kind of like ribbing, almost like the ribbing of a sweater, like that pattern, right? Okay, and then I'd like to draw, I can see I'm about halfway through my stream. I definitely want to draw a few more, so I'm going to be pretty chill on the laces. Like, I'll put them in there, but not, again, too much stress. And part of what I was talking about this week, right, was that very idea that laces, super important for function. Definitely want to stress that, but my intent or my priority currently, right, is like just trying to do this, trying to like get some nice landing on the perspective points. So then I don't want to turn my drawing personally into a lace, extravaganza. So that said, let's be respectful. We look at the shoe and we say, okay, there's 7 eyelets, right? I mean, like the little hole. So then I'll just come over here and I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then it looks like they are largely just a crisscross, like just like an X. And then usually what I try to do is see like which one looks more on the top, right? So then I'll just kind of do this like 1. They're again broken lines, broken information. So it's not complete, like you can't totally tell like, oh, is there like an exact way this stuff's patterned, but at least it gets the idea. Although I gotta be careful because I want to make sure that's the center. So I'm gonna try that again. So I'll do these, and then I'll kind of cross it a little bit more here in the front. This is different for every artist. Every artist has their own way of kind of interpreting texture or creating it. That's kind of the fun of texture in general. It's like, oh, can you come up with a language? Let me zoom in on this. Can you come up with like a type of language or mark that implies like crisscrossing shoelaces, for instance, right? And some of that practice I've had formally, right? I mean, like I took class where someone gave an assignment or taught us, like talked to us about like how to make textures. And then the rest was just trial and error. Like, does this work every time? No. Like, sometimes you do it and it looks like junk. So then just, you need to practice. Get a feel for, like, yeah, what steps would I take to make that illusion? Now, this is a really crunchy photo. And I'm not totally thinking hard about how shoelaces look when they're tied. But it probably looks something kind of like that. Because I see, like, a little bit of lace sticking out. So same thing over here, especially again, my time's running out for what I want to do, so I'll just do my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Just a little hints of laces, but nothing too crazy. I do want to put some color because I love the color that I see on here. It's that like bone white would be a good word for it, meaning it's It's not pure white, just like we talked about with the black shoes, but it's also like a creamy kind of white. It's a nice color. So there's a little bit of the laces coming in. Okay, and then last thing, do I need any more spot blacks? Very important, right? Do I need any more little pieces of black? And so I'm going to put them kind of underneath the pants. Okay, so, and then there's some little junk on here I'll clean up, throw some color on there, and then I'll draw the perspective lines. There's that. Okay, so of course on Photoshop, of all things, we set the line art to multiply if we want to paint under it, just to ensure that there's no like extra colors or anything coming through. This time I'm gonna grab my little paintbrush, there we go. Yeah, and then let me do like kind of like a creamy color. So again, what we often call bone white. In fact, that's not a bad color. Oops, I was actually just touching that. There we go. So let's get like a yellow. Yeah, like even like right there. Part of this, of course, is from like walking around the sun, probably. You know, like I don't know a lot of like the kind of like chemistry of this, but it could be from the sun yellowing out the shoes, probably from walking on the ground, right? Gets that white yellow. It's cool, kind of has like a vintage look. It even makes sense because these are some pretty like fashionable people that were wearing these. Makes sense that they have kind of that really light khaki color pant. So I just kind of brush a little bit of this. There's a nice like crease right here. Boom, right there. Actually a little bit darker even. Yeah, like right there. So I will throw that in there. This is more practice, right, for the time that you'd be using. You'd say to yourself, okay, well, if I had, even if I had like markers, like I would do the same thing with my Copic markers. If I had marker, I'd say, okay, like how do I quickly put some sense of color on here, but not spend a lot of time rendering, right? Rendering's important. Making stuff look the way it should, like, you know, texture-wise or realistically, is really important. But so are reps, right? I mean, like time. Like spend less time working on one drawing, like meaning, you know, don't spend an hour or 2 hours just on one pair of shoes. Try to get through 5 or 10 pairs of shoes right in that same time. I would personally think that's more valuable. There's that. Let's put a little bit of color on the leg because it's nice, kind of like a nice amber color skin, like that. And then, yeah, to finish it all off, we'll throw some quick color on the pants. That's a little hard. There we go, yeah. Fabric is a cool thing I was thinking about because I get that question a lot, and then I certainly can't study fabric enough. Like, there's a lot of stuff to think about with it, so that was maybe one of my next streams I'd like to do, is do some like fabric studies. Would be fun. Especially because I saw some cool ones on Pinterest where people, kind of like the way I'm painting it real fast, where they were like nice blocky or chunky kind of paintings. And they just, again, they look really cool. Okay, so let's give this one, we have those little shadows underneath. Oh, and then see the question, can you apply this idea of reps on drawing landscapes? Yeah, absolutely, because if I was drawing landscapes, let me put on here real fast. If you don't mind typing in the, I like your name on Derp a lot, Derps. I like saying things like, well, tell me something, Derp. But yeah, tell me in the chat, like, if you are trying to draw or kind of paint, like, more, you know, like classical or traditional landscapes, or are they more like concept art, kind of like more futuristic sort of like landscape, more contemporary? Because either one, like what I would think about with rep is that's where you're just practicing a lot of composition, and you're actually doing a few things. One, you're practicing when you look at landscapes, especially images or even artwork, you're trying to see where things land on those sides. So for instance, this could be like, let's say almost like 30%, if you imagine like 0 to 100. So maybe there's like a 30% that suddenly goes up to like an 80%, right? You're kind of practicing like how do, you know, parts of the composition hit the frame. It's like a dubstep now, this next song. All right, I'm getting that. And then the other thing you're trying to practice, of course, would be the grounds. So for instance, let's say you had a really simple composition like this, then most of the time you're going to see in those grounds, the foreground, middle ground, background, probably this type of relationship where you have the darker foreground, the more gray, right, the more middle kind of value, middle ground, and then of course the very light background, the lightest ground. So this is the rendering, like kind of like a fast, as we're saying, like reps rendering. Here's like clouds, right? Here's maybe some lighting that you'd see. This is, I'm kind of imagining this like some rocks, right? Kind of like a big thing of rock. Okay, this song's a little, I thought this song was cool. It's kind of hectic for me. it's kind of rad, but I'm also like, wow, take it easy, dude. All right, there we go. Okay, so let's go back here. So yeah, and then, oh, and sorry, I'm kind of like really zoomed out. I can go up here. So yeah, then you'd see again like your darker kind of stuff going on in the foreground. So what you're trying to study, I would say, in a landscape that's high rep is, first of all, like definitely black and white for the most part. Like you could do it in color, but I feel like black and white, you get a little more speed and then like more of what's valuable. Because the hierarchy in art would be shape, value, color, meaning shape is most important. That's the most important thing in art, is shape. Then the value, meaning like the lighting or the light and dark, of course, of what you're working with. And then finally color. So if your shapes are correct, that's what you're kind of studying here, is you're trying to study shapes. You're trying to study how they hit the sides, right? If your values are correct, meaning you've made your separate foreground, middle ground, and background, then this could be any color and it'll still read, or it'll still be correct, you know, depending on which way you want to look at that. Like read, meaning like it'll make sense, and then correct just meaning like, yeah, it's representational of what you wanted, and my viewer should be able to see what's going on. So when you're studying landscapes, you're trying to study, first and foremost, the foreground, middle ground, background, right? Like take no matter what the landscape is, take those three ideas and try to divide it up. So try to like very distinctly find like what is in the front, what's in the middle, what's all the way in the back. Then the next thing you want to look for is what I'd call kind of like those frame, probably like, I want to say like percentages, but why not? Like frame percentages. So I mean, like if this was, you know, 0 again to 100%, like where on there is the foreground ending, or where is it, you know, beginning or ending? Like which part of the frame is it hitting? Because you want to start being more formulaic with that, not in the sense of being dull. It's another wild song on it. Let's get back to that chill kind of stuff here. Maybe we'll go, okay, look, let's go back a little bit of lo-fi. We're getting serious here about composition. There we go. Let's try that. Those are some squirrely songs. All right, so frame percentage, like where on the side of the frame, if this was 0 to 100%, again, you can kind of form whichever one direction-wise you want to think about, but 0 to 100%, you know, where on the frame is it hitting? That's the second thing. And then, of course, the third thing would be value, right? You're trying to work on, you know, the value that these are. Dark, gray, light. Is it the reverse? Is this dark back here? Is this gray? Is this light? You're trying to find those value ideas. And then the fourth one, just for bonus points, because I don't have the best word for this, but this is what I say a lot to my students, especially, be real estate. So meaning look at those three grounds in particular, the foreground, middle ground, background, and try to decide which one has the most real estate, like which one's taking up the most, which one is maybe like second place, which one's third place. Because in landscape, and especially in like compositions and scenes, you want that to be very distinct. Like I want to be able to tell there's a large, medium, and small, right? That there's something that's significant, a significant portion of the image, something that's kind of in between, something that's like the smaller element. Because the more I push things towards being that readable, the better it is for my viewer. That's why we use the word read, right? It's because we're trying to say, you know, come up with something that when we look at it, it's easy to tell what it is. That's a very general way of putting it, right? But it's true. That's what you want for your viewers. I don't want to give my viewer a lot of work. I don't want to waste their time. I want them to be able to see this very quickly. So that's what I would do if I was doing reps on landscape. Or, you know, for lack of a better term as well, we call that, you know, like composition, right? It's like not just landscape or scenes, but even like interiors or background design, things like that. Hoping to draw concept art in Vista. Yeah. And again, that would be, you know, no different. Like if you're looking at classical landscape, you know, I would do the same thing, right? I would do it for like landscapes from like the turn of the century or 19th century. Yeah, yeah, I see right there. The Bob Ross, right? The Bob Ross landscape, you could do it too. And then, yeah, especially the more contemporary stuff, you could do it as well. You can do, you know, basically what, of course, I'm talking about there is like foreground, middle ground, background. You're always focusing on that. And then especially where things hit the frames, because that becomes more and more important. And as students, of course, when we're first learning, we're maybe less conscious of that. Like we're not really aware of like how something's actually like really like hitting the side of the frame of the composition and how important that can be, so that you have these numbers like, I want this to be about 30%. I want this to be about 60% over here. You know, kind of, and especially what you're trying to do, I'll draw it on here super fast, is you're just trying to avoid this. Like you're just trying to totally avoid, you know, complete quadrants or equality or like things that are like really stale like that, unless the narrative really calls for it. You always want some kind of like asymmetry for interest, right? Okay, so here to wrap this one up is, I'll actually make a new layer here. A little bit of the perspective, so I'm doing it over and over again because I want to get kind of like a nice shot. That's not too bad right there. Again, this one, I can't really do this as much. Like I can't draw all the way across because I do want to respect that this is turning. So what was more important here is that the heels touch, that they walk up. That's a specific verb that I would use a lot, is walk up. Like have the heels, you know, walk up, have eyes on a head walk up, like make sure they kind of feel that they really connect with one another. And of course, even the pants to a certain extent can do that as well. And then here, of course, would be just a little bit of the tile, as we call it. I'll cut that off a little bit. So yeah, there's a little bit of that perspective on those shoes.
I don't have a lot of patience for people who feel like they're down.
So we got about, I mean, I could probably go on for a little bit longer time-wise for myself, but we have about, I would say 10 more minutes, like 10 or 15 more minutes. So if you have, again, if you have something, like you want to throw a link in the chat for some other shoes, I'm happy to draw that. There's like a character that maybe you like, and like I could look at the way they hit the ground, and we could do something like that. I'm happy to accommodate. Otherwise, I'll wrap up today with just probably one more study. So let's see. So I'm looking through my reference. Yeah, these are kind of cool. I noticed on my chat that I think it's like only the most recent message really shows up. So I'm actually gonna, let me see real fast if this looks good. I'm actually gonna move, oh no. I'm trying to like move things on my OBS. I don't want to mess this up. Let's try this again. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so yeah, I just want to make that a little bit bigger. That way you can see my, even if it goes in front of the chat, you know, sorry about that, but there's not too much chat, so I'd rather the picture be there. Okay. So yeah, those, similar to what I just did style-wise, these are kind of cool. You know, I always like Converse. Those are kind of nice. Yeah, these are pretty wild. This is actually too, this is a pose normally in, I think in character design in particular, you wouldn't want to do, because it's like this almost like perfect 45 degree. That's kind of like a, like not the best kind of positioning for the feet. But maybe I'll do that one, because what I'll do is I'll straighten them to like a way you'd want them to look, so that way I'm really like building off the photo. So I might do that. These are really cool. I used to have shoes like this. I think they were Reeboks, if I remember right, and I love how they look. Or no, they were actually a Nike, I think. I'm trying to remember, maybe the AF1s, right? The Air Force Ones. There again, I don't know shoes very well. You know, I just know the shapes, but yeah, that's a good shoe. I like that look. Yeah, I think I'll do that one. I'll do this one too. I like these, and I'm gonna change like the pose. So like I'm gonna draw basically like the other ones, but kind of use cues from the design to sort of get that right. Okay, so last time I was drawing, I noticed my my video isn't updating, so let me just make sure that's on there. Yeah, okay, cool. Okay, so yeah, my last one for today, probably I'll try to go a little bit quicker, you know, maybe like just 10 minutes, and that way we can wrap up on our hour. Especially because I'll be seeing, apparently for some of you, some of you I'll be seeing later today, so I gotta get prepped for those classes. Okay, so I'm gonna do like a whole like complete turn, like I'm gonna have them pointing this way and everything, so kind of playing off of that. No, please ask questions. Yeah, I mean, I'm just starting to stream. I've only been doing it for a couple of weeks, and I would love to have as many people as possible. So yeah, please ask questions. What kind of shoes do I like to draw? You know, like I've studied shoes a bit, but you know, like not for like, let's say for years and years. So it's even like starting to be sort of fresh for me to like draw them more and more. But probably my favorite ones would be, the boots are cool. I definitely like the texture a lot of doing the boot. And then let me actually, I'll paste it on here. Again, this would be a prime example. That's why I even put it on here. Like that's a nice shoe, like a high top, like basketball shoes, high tops. Those are cool. Like that's definitely stuff I like. But yeah, I also really like boots, because I like, for the leather boot in particular, that shiny texture you can get is really, really cool. And in the future too, speaking of like questions and stuff, something I'd love is if people are drawing alongside, if you're working like at home on some drawing, you know, like if we're doing shoes together, it'd be super rad to see like what you do. Like show me a drawing or like a piece, and I'll put it up here, right? That's one of my big goals too, is once a week getting on just to do some crit. So you send in some work, you know, I'll do a little draw over, help out with it. But yeah, high tops, boots, those would be like pretty high priority for me. That's definitely stuff that I like a lot. Okay, so I'm gonna draw a little bit of the perspective on here, especially because I'm making these up. I'm going to build from the ground up, right? That's the whole point of putting this down, is this slice and slice, so slice up, slice down, is meant to be like the ground plane that you build the foot on. What I talked about earlier in the week when I was teaching this to some of the students, you said, is that right? I'm still someone's cool. Are you're like in class or something, right? Hey, I'm not going to, one thing, especially since I'm off the clock, teaching wise, right, from my schools, the one thing I tell you is like, well, I'm not going to stop you from watching some art during the day, right? I'm happy you're here looking at class, or I should say looking at art stuff. Those boots look like boots ninjas would wear. Yeah, totally. They look like I'm trying to think of like, yeah, because there's like ninjas, like Ninja Gaiden, right? Like that old game where you have like the traditional like split toe. But I'm trying to think like, what's like a character in a movie or something that has like the boots? It reminds me probably of like Mortal Kombat or something. Like that's something I think about. This looks like Johnny Cage or something, or Jax, right? Jax, the guy with the metal arm. He'd probably wear boots like that. But yeah, that's a good point. And funny too, because usually we think of a ninja having like the split toe, like they're really traditional, but they do also sometimes wear like boots and stuff, and like of course all black. Yeah, I'm trying to wonder like who's like a guy, like a specific like ninja, I wonder, that has that. I love that. I'm still somewhat in school. That's good. Okay, so yeah, this one, again, I'm going to build from scratch. So meaning I don't have the view. Actually, here on Photoshop, because I know like my ref is still a little bit small, I'll put this up here. I'll kind of put it in the corner, that way it's also on the page. There we go. Let me grab my layer. There we go. So yeah, just to give you a hint of what I'm doing too, like this is really important to me. Oop, I'm gonna go up here. Like that's a really important view, because that's the best view I have for proportion and even like shapes. So if I can see that view of an item, like profile view, of course we'd call it, then I largely can do a lot of invention. Like I can kind of really build, you know, a good example of that shoe. And of course, I talk about that with everything, including, you know, for some of you who are in my class, I guess it would have been last week, right, when we were doing animals in my creative practice class, then that's exactly what I told people, right, is like get a profile view of the animal, because that's one of the only ways you'll get really solid proportion. And then I'm going to kind of stress building one of these shoes over here on this side kind of as correct as possible, and then use it again as a model for the one over here. Big strap, right, that goes kind of like almost down to the heel. Oh, hold on, I got a really heavy eraser. Let me turn that down. There we go. Okay, there we go. Oh yeah, and the bat was cool. That was a good one. Bat's cool. That was a fruit bat, I think, right? That's a good one to study. Especially their anatomy is crazy, and I think it was only like a year or something, I feel like, ago, that I was drawing a bat, and I was looking like a bat skeleton, and that's where I was like, man, it's so crazy that the bat is literally like a little person. It has like the same kind of like arm bones and fingers and like a thumb and everything. Like it's very crazy in the animal kingdom, right? Like how stuff is so close to us. It's so similar to like who we are. This basketball shoe almost has like a double sole in a way, which is kind of interesting. It has like a separate like kind of shape for the sole, and then like that really thick, chunkier sole below it. So that's something I'm kind of looking at. I just need to be a little bit higher. So I'm already feeling not too bad about this shape, and then I'm gonna use it to draw the other one. So moral of today, right? I mean, like the big theme of today, besides shoes, perspective, and building and all that kind of stuff, would be structure. Like lots and lots of structure drawing. Thinking about things in space as three-dimensionally as possible. That's how we get to invent. That's how we memorize, right? That's how we actually remember stuff for later, is we think a lot about its structure. Get that a little bit taller. Okay, now I'll lighten this one up. Okay, now I'll start to build this one. And part of what I'm doing too is I drew two shoes kind of like this, right, coming forward. So it even gives me some thoughts on like how that perspective behaves like for a shoe, right? Like one thing I did notice on a lot of photos, especially for like pictures themselves, is the shoe does look a little bit like much bigger almost since it's coming forward. Question on there: what is the hardest part for you when you draw shoes? You know, probably what I'm about to do right now, which is of course like drawing one that's coming towards me and trying to keep that not only 3D but sort of like, you know, very accurate to like the width and everything. You know, that's the whole point of drawing like two of something, is they're pointing in different directions, and then on top of that you're trying to like really match like the design, like how the thing actually is created, you know, its shape and everything. So that's definitely the hardest part for me. You know me, like because of course like, I have you for class, and like people who know me, like, you know, I love drawing. I'm always like super into it, you know, and absolutely, like, are there parts that are like really hard for me? Yeah, totally. There's plenty of stuff where I'm like, man, this is rough, or like, ooh, I'm really in for it, you know, doing this or something. And that'd be one example, is trying to draw now the one that's coming forward. In fact, one of the first things I'm reacting to is like, wow, it's too thin. Like, this is a pretty wide shoe. It's got like a lot of width on it, so I need to like bring it a little bit wider. The matching part, people talk about that a lot, right? When we're even in our class, when we were drawing the eyes and the heads, like people talk a lot about how hard it is to match like the two eyes. Oh yeah, and then question there: have I heard of Splatoon, and do I like their shoes? Yeah, I know a little bit. Like, I know of it. Like, I don't know it deeply. Let me try to get an internet window open. Let's see, Splatoon. I've like seen it a little bit, not a whole lot. But yeah, let me see one of their shoes real quick. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, actually, as far as I can tell right off the bat, they have like, yeah, that's cool. They have like high tops, right? They kind of like high top shoes. So this would be an example where I'll put it on the screen. There we go. Yeah, example where it's like you'd want to do the exact training I'm doing right now, right? Like drawing high tops and tennis shoes and things, because even in this game, that's basically what they're deriving it from. That's where they're inspired by, is real life kind of like high tops and tennis shoes, basketball shoes, right? So yeah, I don't know the game well. It looks fun. Speaking of, I'm on Twitch, right? So I feel like it's mandatory to talk about games for 2 seconds. I don't play a lot of games at this point. I used to play lots of video games when I was younger. I was a very heavy gamer, especially in my time, right? So I'm like a 90s kid. So my time was really, really cool for video games. All the like original Zeldas and Final Fantasy games, a lot of cool shooting games, right? Like Gears of War and Doom and all that. But yeah, I'll just say I don't play as many games now because I don't have as much time, because I'm drawing, right? I'm working, I'm drawing, trying to do stuff like this even, right? Get better and train all the time. But yeah, Splatoon looked cool. It looks fun. I like games like that where they look like they're kind of like fast and they're match based. You kind of get in, get out. I thought about that with like Rocket League. Like that game looks super fun, and I wish I had time to play it because it looks like just a fun game to like drop in and have a match or two and then like duck out. Even like Overwatch, like I sort of barely bought a copy of Overwatch a few weeks ago, and I still haven't even like played a match. But yeah, any game where I can like jump in and out is pretty good. What's the hardest video game character I've drawn? That's a good one. Let me think. First of all, that's inspiring because I haven't drawn a game character in quite a while. But oh, I remember. I wish I had this. This is like way back when I was younger, but I remember I drew Ganondorf from like Ocarina of Time. So like, I forget, his design doesn't change too much, but I drew Ganondorf, of course, from Zelda. And I remember he was really hard because he had so much like armor and stuff like that. And I did that again way long time ago when I was probably like 12, I feel like, or something. But I remember that being hard. And then that's such a good question because, again, I haven't drawn like a lot of game characters lately. I wanted to do some fan art. Actually, a good point for bringing that up because I should totally do some fan art here and there. Yeah, if you have a game character that you think would be cool or challenging, you should tell me, because then I'll make a stream of that, right? Like I'll do a stream where I do some fan art of a character. Yeah, and actually, speaking of that, when I was thinking about like hard characters, I haven't drawn them yet, but I bet a lot of those Overwatch characters would be pretty challenging because they're very specific in the proportion, and then also they're just cool. Like they're very faceted, right? I mean, like they have like a lot of details. So I feel like drawing one of them would be a huge challenge. Even like a Tracer, and like Tracer's one of the like simpler body types, I would say, but that in itself makes her look like she's really hard to draw. But yeah, if you have a character that you think is cool, you should tell me. I'd love to draw it. I used to draw a lot of, when I was younger, probably like a lot of like your age, right? I was drawing a lot of stuff from like Metal Gear Solid. That was the one that was on PlayStation, the first PlayStation. I would draw like Revolver Ocelot and stuff. In fact, I was drawing the whole time I was younger, but it wasn't until I drew some of these Metal Gear Solid drawings that I started to think, oh, I wonder if I could like be an artist. It's like, that's when I started to take myself a little more serious with art. And then like the big turning point, I've talked about this with a lot of my students, the big turning point was I started to draw like portraits, right? Which a lot of people do as artists when they're first starting out. They kind of learn how to draw like portraits or like human heads or like celebrities or something. And I was no different. That's exactly what I did, is I started drawing portraits and they were not too bad. So then I felt really encouraged, like, oh, I could actually do art for a living. And that's how a lot of my art started. And of course, those were like really old school, like, Britney Spears and stuff like that. I used to draw like Edward Scissorhands, right? Like Johnny Depp. But that's usually all it takes for wanting to get really good at art. Or like, to pursue it, is you just need to be encouraged, right? And then specifically when you find something you can draw and that you like and you're kind of cool, about it, like you feel cool about it, like that's, I think, where you really start to say to yourself, wow, I could do this for a living, Let me look that character up. Yeah, that's a game I'd love to play, by the way. There again, a little too busy. I still haven't bought a Switch, but I'd love to play Breath of the Wild. It looks so cool. Let's see, I'm looking it up real fast. I think there's a spoiler I just clicked on because I was like, oh, that's not a good question. I won't say it out loud, but it was like the top question about this character, and I was like, whoops. There, hold on, I actually have to move this for a second. There we go. Oh, wow, that's a rad character. Yeah, in fact, let me put, especially in-game, that character looks cool, but here's another, like, cool picture. This is sort of like looks kind of like a concept art. Wow, that's a sick character, yeah. I'm gonna write that down. I want to make a drawing of that character. Yeah, that's rad. Obviously, you know, like one of the top games people are always bringing up in my classes is Genshin, and I've been thinking about that too. Like, I want to draw some stuff from that. I want to do like a little bit of like character design analysis would be cool. Yeah, Xenoblade. That's a game. Let me think. That's like a PS1 game, I think, right? Like, I know, I'm sure they've made some other ones, but I feel like I remember that. Unless it was like Xenogears. I don't remember. Is it like an RPG? You can tell me that. I forget. But I'm writing that down too. Yeah, what a cool. That'd be such a cool stream for the week. Like one of the days of the week is just doing like a little fan art, talking about a character. Like I'd love to analyze that character. It's so cool. It's kind of like an RPG. Yeah, it sounds sort of familiar, although I don't want to confuse it with. I think it's called Xenogears. It was like an older RPG. There again, like kind of from my time, I remember. Thanks so much for all the conversation, by the way, and hanging out, because I know it's 1:05 my time here in California, and so I'm gonna try to wrap these up a little bit. What became funny is actually I kind of like the structure of this shoe, so now I'm just trying to like, adjust this one a little bit. But yeah, definitely, I'm loving all the conversation. I appreciate it. And again, my plan would be definitely doing some character stuff, so then these are good jumping off points. I'll just make one. It'd be cool to draw them, you know, especially because I wouldn't want to draw like the photo, like just like this of a character. I'd want to, you know, like I'm doing right now, I kind of change the pose and like learn how to draw the character, like talk a little bit about it. And so I could see some really cool discussion coming out of that. And yeah, you can't go wrong with like RPG characters. They have really cool designs. Okay, let's see. Yeah, a lot of what I'm having to do on the shoe to kind of get it in a good place is just make it a little bit taller and taller. Like just keep pushing the height a little bit more. Yeah, obviously one thing I like a lot about having you guys in the room and like chatting, of course, is it just makes some time fly too to get some studies done, to do some art. I love, there again, like I like working quietly, you know, just with myself, but it's also fun to talk about art. That's the thing I love to talk about. That's what makes me love talking, is I love talking about art. And especially now, character. I was always into characters, but I got more serious with character design, and then in the best way I got even a little bit better at talking about it, because before I knew largely a lot of what I was thinking about opinion wise, but then I feel like I really started to understand character design when I studied it more and took class on it. I think that's where I really started to have better commentary, better thoughts on it. So I'm going to do something to kind of wrap up my, I know I keep saying wrap up, but to kind of get this going, what I'm going to do now is I think I kind of want to like paint these just a little, meaning instead of like cleaning up the shapes with lines, I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to throw in some kind of like paint on there. Let me grab this brush, and I'll color pick off the photo. I don't do that too often, but just to kind of get my time going a bit. So yeah, I kind of want to like build them like this real quick. So I'll show you that real fast. This was my favorite day probably of streaming. I think at one point I saw I had 7 whole people in here, which is a lot for me because I'm just starting out. So I feel like Usually I have like only like, you know, one person or two people. So, and yeah, for you guys staying in here and chatting and stuff, thanks for that. Oh, the Dragon Prince, that show looks so good. There again, I haven't watched it yet. That's probably like my favorite thing to come out of my mouth all the time is, oh, I haven't seen that yet, or I haven't played that yet, because I get a little busy. But yeah, Dragon Prince looked really cool. I'm also writing that down. King Ezrin. In fact, I want to look at let me look at his picture real fast. King Ezrin. Wow, oh cool, I've actually seen some artwork of this character. Of course, because the show's really popular, I'm the one that's kind of late to it. But yeah, I love the design, very good. Really nice design, good hair. Love the face. This is what I often call the, kind of like a blend between Eastern and Western look, where it has a very, certainly like a very authentic kind of like Eastern anime style like graphic face and the eye design in particular, but then there's a lot of kind of Western, I feel like, quality, especially to like the execution of it. But yeah, that's a really cool character. That's again, I put that down, like that's something I'd love to draw. I'll keep some of these characters on a list, and I'll choose some to do some drawings of. That'd be cool. Oh, you said you're in Texas. Where in Texas are you at right now? Because I'm from Texas originally. I'm from South Texas originally, and then I lived in Austin for a while. Recommendations for courses and workshops. Yeah, I think the number one recommendation I would give you for classes, workshops, like stuff especially with people, would be Brainstorm School. That's where I've taken my classes. I took class with Q Feng, and that was one of the best classes I've had. I took actually 2 classes with him on character design. I took it again. I liked it so much. So yeah, Brainstorm, I would highly recommend taking classes with them. Oh, and you still live, oh yeah, this is so funny because I'm in the Bay Area now. We have like a reverse life. I lived in Oakland for about 6 years. Now I live in Petaluma, which is north of San Francisco, right? So yeah, you're in Houston. Houston's huge. It's kind of funny when people, being from Texas, people say that, right? They'll be like, oh, I'm in Houston, or I live in Houston. And of course the joke would be like, where? It's such a huge city. It's so spread out, you know? But yeah, Texas is cool. There's definitely some stuff I miss about it. You know, I'm sure, again, you're actually the opposite world as me. Like, you used to live in California, now you live in Texas. I used to live in Texas, now I live in California. And so, like anything, there's definitely stuff to, like, miss. I miss some stuff about Texas. I do like California a lot. I think it's a cool place. The people are pretty cool. Texas people are very cool, you know? There's a lot of jokes about Texas, and they're deserved because people in Texas can be a little bit funny, right? Especially being from there. But yeah, Texas people are cool though. People from the South are pretty cool. Yeah, you miss California. Yeah. I think not to egg it on or like egg you on, but I think the thing that I don't miss about Texas, like the part I feel really happy about, is the weather. Because especially I'm from South Texas, which is right on the border. So yeah, you're in Houston, right? So imagine like you're already pretty, you know, deep into Texas, and like I'm from the tip of Texas right on the bottom. And it was so hot and humid there my whole life because I was born and raised down there. Whole life so hot and humid. I don't miss it at all. I really don't. And so that's the thing. Oh yeah, and hurricanes. Yeah, I see that on there. Yeah, the weather is severe, and of course in California, because you lived up here too, you know that probably the thing that's the scariest is like fire season. You know, like that's something that I'm still trying to get used to, and even now is kind of tough for me to think about, where I'm like, wow, like I hate like the fires and like all the crazy stuff that happens with that. But yeah, hurricanes in Texas are intense. Obviously you were in Houston, you probably got some of that crazy snow, right? Like the crazy winter storm idea thing or whatever that happens. It's wild down there in Texas weather-wise. I talk about that a lot with people. I say, oh yeah, the storms in Texas, you know, with the exception of, yeah, like fires or like, you know, earthquakes here, the storms are really violent in Texas. Like they're very strong, very powerful. 3 days without anything. Yeah, my so you're saying yeah, 3 days without anything. My family who still lives in South Texas, they had a really rough time. Same thing. I think they went 5 days, if not 6, I want to say, without power or anything. It was crazy. And you know, there's plenty of commentary on that, like what happened, why did it happen, but one thing's for sure, which is like people in Texas had no idea, like no preparation for that. And how could you? There's no way you would expect to need like a generator or like some way to like keep your food, you know, stable, because nothing like that has ever happened there, you know. Even in all my time there, it snowed one time, which was pretty random, especially for South Texas. But yeah, otherwise you don't deal with weather like that. Like there's no way you would know what to do during all that. So yeah, I feel for you, man. That was a tough time there. But yeah, Houston, now there, speaking of places or things I haven't done in a long time, I haven't been to Houston in forever. I went a few times when I was a kid. I go to like the museums. Houston does have a lot of really great art museums. But yeah, it's been ages since I've been to Houston. And mostly because a lot of my friends moved out of Houston. So I don't have as many people I know there now. I feel like I typically repost these videos on YouTube, so I feel like this would be the point where people are possibly watching this replay being like, what is this, an art video, or is this like a fireside chat? But that's what I like about streaming. I think it's fun that we can chat about stuff while we're doing some art. And yeah, what a small world. It's funny that you're literally the reverse of me. You used to live in California, now you live in Texas, and I'm the total opposite. Lived in Texas my whole life, and then I moved to California about 8 years ago. Yeah, there you go. Draw my life, but not really, yeah. Yeah, well, honestly, drawing can be largely quiet, right? So, yeah, beats total silence. You can just have some nice conversation going on. Oh yeah, and these are actually a little bit horizontal. So, to quickly jump into what I'm doing here, I'm putting in like some laces, a little bit of paint on here, and then I kind of want to clean these up just a bit. And I think I'll arrive at a spot that looks kind of cool, where it's like a nice little painting study of these. This is very shape based, I would say. So meaning I'm still thinking about the line quality or like how things look, but now as a painter, you know, by blocking it in with paint, I tend to think more about like shapes. And speaking of that, I got like a bunch of stuff on the screen, so I actually I'll leave that there, but I kind of want to turn some of this stuff off over here for a little bit, make that smaller. Actually, I have it on my reference, and I'm going to even like take it off here because I like to be able to see. Yeah, there we go. That's a little bit clearer. It's also my, I think my longest stream, because now we're approaching about 1 hour 20. So, for real, I'm gonna try to call it in about 10 minutes or so. That way I can get ready for my next classes. I have, I got, 2 classes to teach today. So I'm teaching comic, actually this is a class that kind of fits what we talked about. I'm teaching my comic character design and manga class. It's primarily character design comic, you know, and like we talk about manga characters, but we don't necessarily make like a lot of manga faithfully. I mean, like, like the exact process and like the screen tones and everything, but the whole point would be like we're doing artwork and we're respecting that there's both the Eastern and Western style comic. But yeah, I'm teaching that, and then I'm actually teaching my intermediate advanced digital art class. And actually they'll see on there, especially my student who I don't think she's here anymore, but she's in that class. If she's still here, she'll see that we're actually doing not this necessarily, but definitely something close to this for today. But yeah, usually for classes, my prep is, of course, making like a file, right? If I have a file that I need to give to everyone for the lesson, but also just warming up, you know what I mean? Like sometimes the whole point of prepping for a class is just having some time to sit and draw and get warmed up.
happening, but-
Oh yeah, are you still here, Kayleen? Nice heads up. Yeah, Kayleen. Here's the spoiler because you're in class. Oh, you have a friend who's taking my class. Okay, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so the spoiler, Kayleen, is we're actually doing what is called like a street fashion character, like a street fashion kind of like drawing. But the point of the assignment would be to not be too inventive. Like it's not necessarily fantastical or like super inventive kind of work. It's more taking like a real life person, like a real life photo, and then sort of like stylizing them into a drawing, but then trying to respect the original design, like the original fashion. And so one thing I'm going to do today, Kayleen, since you're here, is I will talk a little bit about drawing shoes for a little bit in class to kind of give a demo. Yeah, and so this is cool. I have, students from my one school who take my digital art class. I have students who are in here who take my drawing as creative practice class, which is really cool. And even though I draw on the screen, like that's a largely traditional class, so I can't really talk too much about Photoshop or digital art. But yeah, I obviously love all my classes. Been loving the drawing and creative practice class. I think it's going really well. Okay, so time to put these tied shoelaces in here. And then I may fill in like a couple of my little gaps, and then I'll call it. I think I've been saying that for about 45 minutes, and then I'm gonna call it. Kayleen knows it's just like real life. I say I'm gonna end on time, and then I go a little bit over. Can't help it. I was gotta squeeze in that last bit. These are, by the way, for me to actually look like I know what I'm talking about with shoes. I can tell these, I'm 99% sure these are what's called an Air Force One, an AF1 Nike, because I had a pair, and that's funny too, because they're Nike, they must be something like that, and no wonder I was drawn to them. Haha. No wonder I liked the picture, because it reminds me of a shoe I used to have, and I'll definitely get another pair. I just had my other pair for a while, and they got worn out, but yeah, very cool shoe. Really cool style. So I like the all black look. It's got like a nice, kind of cool, like aggressive look to it. My big theme on this was the blue-black, kind of using some nice tinted black again, so it's not fully black. So as I genuinely, for real, wrap it up, yeah, this was my favorite stream I've done. It's just nice to have some people in here to talk to and get some ideas off of, and I'm really excited. These characters I wrote down, from, was it Breath of the Wild, from, the Dragon Prince, Xenoblade, like I'm super excited to do some character studies of those, and especially for a lot of you who know I'm teaching, of course, right, that I have the class and stuff, that'd be a big part of it, is I'd love to draw those characters and then kind of teach a little bit about them, talk about some of the character design process that we might see in them, and give some advice, right, on talking to them. So definitely keep an eye out for that. And I'll start to get to more of a schedule. This, I think, is the first thing I'm going to try to schedule. I think every Wednesday about lunchtime, 12 o'clock, pretty much right on the dot. 12 o'clock for me, I should say, 12 o'clock Pacific time. Every Wednesday I'll try to get on here and do like something educational. And today, especially because I told Kayleen already too, like today a big part of it was I wanted to talk about something I've been teaching during the week, but I'll do some other stuff in general. Okay, then to wrap this up, I'm just going to give it a little kind of like hard blue shine, because I noticed that this is like leather. These should be leather, so they do have a little bit of a kind of sharper highlight like that. There's a little bit of like the blue highlight for the seam. My last kind of sign off of something educational from today too is if you didn't notice already, like notice how far away I was on this drawing. I mean, like I largely sat way back here. I wasn't really like painting up here like up close. I largely sat like way back here and just painted. And you should too. I mean, like you should just paint from like a zoomed out position. Don't get too close, especially for like a study. Because one, you want to train yourself to be able to see things from this far away, because this is what your viewer would see. So like your viewer is not going to do this. That's why you don't want to always paint like that. Your viewer is going to be back here. So that's one reason why. And then also just to I think be a more disciplined painter, you'd want to kind of keep your distance, like not get too close. And here's a little like slight highlight in this. This is like a metal tag right on the front that says AF1. Yeah, and then let's go ahead and put the final perspective on there. So here's, I'm gonna take this off. Here's some of that perspective line. There we go. I'll actually put this up here so I can erase it. All right, guys, this was super awesome. This was totally my favorite stream. I usually have like 1 or 2 people in here and no one's talking or typing or anything. So thanks so much for being so active in the stream. And I'll go ahead and, again, I'll definitely be back next Wednesday. So for you guys watching this, or if you're watching a replay of it, I'll start making Wednesday at lunch kind of like my educational time. I'll do studies. I'll do something I might be teaching during the week. But yeah, let me go ahead, and I think I even have a little ending. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so there's all my stuff on there. Yeah, thanks so much for being here. I look forward to doing another one. Yeah, again, thanks for sticking around so long. And I feel like you might have seen some of my earlier ones, and I know a couple of people saw my earlier streams, and they were okay, like content-wise, but they were pretty wacky in terms of like the presentation and no music or anything, and the screen was kind of whack. So yeah, this is a good one. Thanks so much, guys. I'll see you all next week, and then go ahead and check out. I'll try to put a little more schedule. I'll put some more stuff up. But yeah, I'll definitely be back on next week. So I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care. See ya.